Hello, welcome to another episode of Mega Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn, and today we are talking about Jujutsu Kaisen 183, titled, what was this one called? We're still at Tokyo Number 2 Colony, Part 3. And as I said, I'm Jason Hahn. I'm a writer for Screen Rant. I like to write video game news, but I'm also a huge manga fan. I'm huge into series like One Piece. Naruto is probably my favorite. Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the ones that has definitely kept my attention after a great anime and whatnot. After the first season of anime wrapped up, I just had to get caught up. So here we are. And I am joined today with my fellow Screen Rant writers who happen to write a lot of comic book news related to manga and Marvel and all that kind of stuff. But I'll go and let them introduce themselves. Steven, you want to go first, man?
Yeah, hello, my name is Steven. I'm on the comics writing side, mostly covering manga, especially Shonen Jump titles, including Jujutsu Kaisen, of course, and also some other topics as well, Sonic and Beast Wars. But yes, I'm very excited about this new chapter.
Yeah, we had a lot of pretty interesting theories last time we talked about chapter 182. Go back and listen to that podcast if you haven't already, because this has been a pretty intricate fight. You kind of need to know everything that's happened in these past couple chapters for things to sort of make sense. But
Yeah. And I know based on our earlier conversations before this, like when we were writing writing our pitches on the comic side, I know that Ben and I have a very different views on this last chapter. So this should be a fun episode. Should be a fun episode.
oh,
Yeah.
great segue. Ben, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ben. I also write a Screen Rant for the comic section. I've been here for almost half a year now, which is something I just realized today. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But I write about manga and also about DC and Marvel comics a bit. And I'd have to say that Jujutsu Kaisen is probably my favorite sort of the new guard of the new,
Okay.
hype series in Shonen Jump. Even though my favorite will always be One Piece, which I know that me and Steven disagree on as well. Uh, but, different takes is the starting point for good discussion. So,
Oh, absolutely. And also, Steven's not all the way caught up on One Piece, so he doesn't have the full picture for that discussion. So, just putting that there.
I'll
Get
just keep
caught
it,
up.
I'll keep it all myself. We'll keep One Piece positive.
We're a One Piece positive podcast at Mega Manga Mondays. But yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen 183. We finally got probably a more thorough breakdown of a domain expansion than we would have ever gotten. And I almost think it's just the perfect matchup of, oh man, because the chapters don't say the names of the characters every time.
Akari,
Hikari and
yeah,
Gordon?
Charles.
Charles.
Charles Bernard.
Bernard, there we go. I was thinking, anyway, Charles Bernard. His ability helps him kind of tell the future, and that perfectly set up the way that they explain how this domain expansion works. And it's kind of brilliant. Like, if there was anybody else that Hikari was fighting, this would have been very confusing. Even, like, a lot more confusing than it was. And I gotta admit, I've read the chapter a couple times now. When I first read it, I did not love it. My favorite panel still, even after a couple read-throughs, is after we get a page and a half of an explanation, an info dump of Hikari's power, that it snaps to Bernard screaming, "Don't info dump me with all that garbage." And then it instantly cuts to Hikari's face, like, with just the most mischievous smile. And I almost feel like the author of this, an artist, Gege, is just he wrote that face, and that's probably the face he was writing, or he had while he was drawing these, because he knows exactly what he's doing with manga formats, and he has been studying all of these. I mean, he's one of the younger guys, right? One of the younger manga artists. Gege?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, because I know like the Chainsaw Man guy is incredibly young. The Black Clover guy is very young. It's just those guys grew up on all the series that we've grown up reading and loving, and they've studied it and they've gotten it down to a science. So this guy knows exactly not to info dump and take people out of the story with different panels of information. That's usually a big no-no. So he instantly countered it with the don't info dump me. This is not something people want. And it was exactly what I felt as I was reading it. But
that was actually the screenshot that I used in my article about it. I used it.
Oh, perfect. But on my second read through, or my expectations were different for the chapter. Everything just makes a lot more sense, and you don't necessarily need to know how a Japanese roulette wheel pachinko machine works. Pachinko. To fully get it. And I think that's what threw me off on my first read through. I was just like, oh man, I barely gamble, let alone know how a foreign slot machine pachinko thing works. But yeah, my second read through was a lot more enjoyable, and I kind of think that this is the end of the fight. I mean, it ends with Charles getting a pretty solid hit. Like, there might be a rib missing, but it's just kind of going back into our other theories we've had in previous episodes, where I definitely don't think these are the only sorcerers in this area. And now we've established that both of them are hurt, and yeah, I think that a real threat's about to show up. But yeah, what were some things that jumped out about this chapter for you guys?
I'd say let's start with Ben, since I don't know if you finished writing it or not, but I know your idea and your pitch was that you would go in depth on how this works, and so you probably have a better understanding of it.
I did in fact write that article, and I did look into how pachinko machines actually work.
Wow, nice.
Things like that, and but let me tell you, even after all that research, it's still a bit confusing. But I think I do have a decent idea of how it works. So, like, pachinko is basically like a mix between pinball and slot machines.
Okay.
So your goal is to basically get a ball into a given... You knock the ball up to the top of the machine, and then it falls down, and you want it to land in certain pockets. And landing in those pockets will allow you to spin the jackpot, essentially, as far as I understand. And so, like how certain pinball machines have certain, like, cutscenes that flash when you trigger certain things, pachinko machines also have that sort of thing happen. And getting balls in certain places can trigger sort of, like, fever time or other sort of modes that let you either, get more money or get more spins or things like that. So when viewed in that light, this kind of makes sense in a way, because basically the idea is that, like, in the beginning he sort of gets a spin, and that spin then determines how well he does with his powers later on. Yeah. But in addition to that,
so it's kind of like D&D.
Yeah, kind of, like, and I mean, there's a lot of randomness involved in this ability. So, like, getting what you actually get as your spin outcome is a lot of randomness. What you actually get as your effect is also somewhat, like, random in terms of how well it does.
Wow.
Like, he can choose... So basically, sort of to trigger the jackpot spin, he has to do something that then leads into it. So basically, he chooses to either, like, throw a ball, cause a door to appear, or cause, like, consecutive effects to appear. And then once that happens, he gets put into Riichi mode, which is he's one away from jackpot, and it spins that last thing, and if it spins a jackpot, then he gets a special bonus.
Yeah, you already lost me, and you're explaining it pretty well.
Yeah, no, I don't know. This has lost me as well. Like, I think I'm correct here.
I think you did a great job. I think it's one of those things where he sort of triggers one thing, and it will either go really well or it won't. But if it goes really, really well, if he tries to trigger another thing, the chances of that second thing going really, really well are less because he sort of got the best consecutive roll first. So it's almost like he's consistently risking to get or a better chance of something awesome happening next, and
I'm not
that's
sure if Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the case because he does like fail a jackpot and then he gets a jackpot like
yeah.
immediately after here. And he also seems to have some way to influence the luck involved because he's like, I've never gone past 30 tries, which statistically you'd expect him to go more because there's like a 1 out of 239 chance of getting jackpot.
Yeah.
So I actually have a theory related to this that he can actually. So, I mean, and this may be out of left field, but I think he can actually influence the cutscenes to get himself better luck. Because in that final cutscene of the chapter, Charles is expecting, the jackpot to trigger when Yume is on the other platform, and the two leads of the rom-com, which we haven't even gotten into the rom-com aspect of this yet,
Yeah.
which is another whole
I
thing.
know.
But the two leads of the rom-com, Charles is expecting, and Charles knows manga very well. So if anyone would know what would happen, it would be him. Charles is expecting the two leads to be on opposite train platforms, and they see they're both on the station, and that triggers a jackpot. Instead of that, however, Yume is actually on the same platform as the male lead, who I think his name is Yuki, and that triggers the jackpot.
Yeah.
So, and then right after that, Hikari says, "I use skill to grab a hold of luck." So while it's clear that Charles can't physically influence the flashbacks because he tries to cut through Yuki at an earlier point, it just passes through him. I think that there must be some sort of way to influence what happens and thus get a jackpot.
Yeah, like I mean, it has because, like, I mean, like one of the main rules of a domain expansion is that the user their attack will always hit. So it's kind of weird that it's like a game of chance inside your own domain. There has to be a catch to it. I mean, there has to be.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing I love about it too is it seems so risky, but at the same time we have the context of Gojo saying that this guy could be the next Gojo, essentially. Like
Right.
he's saying he has the potential to be the next world's most unstoppable dude, essentially.
And basically break the rules. Yeah.
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 But that's to go back to what you were saying, Ben. Like Charles knows manga so much, and we started his whole story introduction of him being like, I'm bored of manga and creating, and it's made me miserable and frustrated and stuff. I think this is going to trigger him loving manga again. And I see them working together against whatever shows up next. But I definitely think this is the end of the fight because in that last big kick to the face, we see Charles's weapon break. And I don't know if it's just the old Bleach fan in me, but whenever somebody's weapon breaks, that's usually the end of a fight. So,
See, I actually think differently. But
okay.
I very much acknowledge it could be the end of the fight because, like you said, Charles's weapon is broken, and also the last panel with Hikari has sort of these like wisps in the background, which could be his domain expansion sort of dissipating.
Ah, yeah.
But we haven't seen what a jackpot is yet. And also, if you notice in the zoomed up like bloody face of Charles at the end, like his eyes are still like they're in focus, right? They're not like
Whited
He's
out.
got
all
the fighting
white or-
spirit, like from Hajime no Ippo. Fighting spirit still.
So like I think he could still be on his feet even if his weapon's broken.
Yeah,
Right.
I almost hope that because I mean, if we go back to his whole identity as a mangaka, I mean he is a fail, and it goes back to like my earlier take on his powers is that he's a failure as a mangaka, and so his powers, which are based on, manga, it it should be bad, just based on his failures. So almost this could be like if almost freeing, almost like if if he fights better now without his pen, it would be. I think that would be incredibly poetic, just because he no longer has that part of him that is always failing, and it kind of actually goes to uh one of those theories for Dragon Ball Super that Carlisle has, that where like the Super Saiyan tail, or the Saiyan tail, is what prevents Saiyans from going Super Saiyan. It might be like this thing, like his pen is what's holding him back, since he is a failure as a mangaka.
Ah, yeah, it's gonna force him to think outside the box because he's been writing inside the box for so long.
Yeah.
I love the parallel. Well, it just kind of goes back to the last chapter when um, Hikari was telling him, "I need to absolutely break you because you're just gonna come up with some reason to, your type always comes up with some reason to blame others for it." And I think that this his domain expansion and everything, he managed to tell a better or a more compelling, moving manga story than the guy who dreams of being a manga artist. And so that's kind of more fueled my theory that he's going to gain a huge respect for Hikari now, and hopefully we'll get a bit of a team up. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what Charles is going to be capable of now that his weapon is broken in half, or if it's even still going to be usable. But I think it'd be really weird if we jumped into another colony fight immediately after this, because this all this all has to play into the bigger picture of this entire arc. And by the end of all those other fights so far, we've definitely gotten some puzzle pieces to lead into the next bit, and I don't feel like this has satisfied that yet. Other than this just nice one and done fight, but
Yeah, no, I think we got to see more of Hikari in
Yeah.
action.
Yeah.
Like it would be really bad if we got introduced to Hikari in a way that hinted at some of his powers, because we saw the doors appear against Yuji, and so we saw a little bit of Hikari, but then it jumped to a completely different arc without Hikari in it at all. And it's been like that for a while, and then it introduces Hikari again, and if it just jumped away after like one brief hint of his abilities again to a completely different thing, I think that would just be very frustrating.
Yeah. It'd be
and
trolly, and Gege likes to troll.
Yeah, but generally when Gege trolls, it's a bit more, you're like, oh, that was a troll, but there's also all this other stuff going on that, like, I think it would be Gege. It worked out well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we have the running gag theory that Ben is an assistant for Gege. So
Yeah, gag. Yeah.
It's not a theory. I think it's stronger than a theory. Like there's quite a bit of evidence pointing that it might be so.
yeah, it's like one of those things where we don't have the solid evidence, but we just got a gut feeling. We can feel it in our gut. So that being said, Ben, what do you think is going to happen next?
I think the fight's going to continue, despite Charles's weapon being broken and the sort of wisps of energy around Hikari in the last panel. And I think we're going to find out what happens when Hikari gets a jackpot. Because in the beginning with his explanation, like you said, if I get a jackpot, I get a bonus. And you'll see what the bonus is if I get one. Just wait till you find out, So I want to find out. I want to see what the jackpot is. And, maybe the wisps of sort of something around Hikari in the last panel is related to the jackpot. So I think we're going to find out what happened, what his bonus actually is.
I almost feel like we already saw it. I mean, didn't it kind of give him the solid hit against Dude's face? Like I
feel like I mean, I feel like if that was the case and it was just a mere like strength buff, then Hikari wouldn't have been so coy in saying like, just wait till you find out what the bonus is,
Hmm.
because he'd just say like, if I get a jackpot, I get stronger or something.
Yeah, I almost get the impression like I just finished. I saw Doctor Strange 2 a couple days ago, and I won't spoil anything for people who haven't seen it yet. But there's one thing that they're looking for in the movie that is just supposed to be kind of a just a like, oh, this spell will just do whatever you need it to do, and you're like, okay, convenient plot device, guys. I almost wonder if that's how his ability works too. The jackpot is just, okay, well, what do you want to happen right now? Well, I need to knock this dude out. I don't want to kick his head off, but I need to knock him out. And that's what happened. So yeah, I don't know. I'm on the side of I think that we've been shown his power, but he just got a jackpot of the third ranked character.
Yeah, the main love interest.
Yeah, the main love interest, which I don't know. That seems like a jackpot to me, but yeah, I'm not going to argue against Jujutsu Kaisen's assistant editor. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see on chapter 184 if this is going to keep going. But Steven, what would you like to happen next?
Well, I mean, I'll just say that I, I hope you get out of the domain expansion. Just because, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, just on the whole thing, I kind of went in biased just because I've never been a fan of when mangaka or just manga goes into like a game type setting when the manga itself isn't based on games. Like I've
Mm,
always felt it kind of jarring for me.
yeah,
Uh, like it even happened with some of my favorite series, like in Undead Unluck. Like probably one of the biggest fights, was a game. It was just one large game. It made a lot of sense because without giving too much away, it was basically one character who gambles, kind of like this, and then the other character whose power is unluck. Like the
yeah,
opposite of luck. So it was like the perfect type of pairing type of thing. So it was like where you appreciate that type of battle, but it just doesn't ring true. But yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where it, yeah, it just it was hard to follow too, and like at what I thought it was interesting, the take on the manga that was thrown in at the end of it. It's just the only problem was, and I thought what was interesting is that before, with other instances with Charles Bernard, is that he has referenced manga that actually exist, like D. Grayman, and I think that at least for me, like someone who finds these type of gaming systems, battle systems jarring, like it would have been great if he somehow brought in a manga series that people actually are aware of or know about. And I actually like searched for the manga, like I was like, is this actually a real thing? And it's not. So
okay,
I kind of find that interesting. Like it would have been at least, I mean, because it was interesting too, because I mean, one of the reasons why I shared that screenshot in my story is that we were kind of in the same situation as Charles was originally. Like we're both going in being like, "Wow, this is a data dump. Like, what is this?"
hmm
So it would have been, it would have made sense if we were still in the same mindset as Bernard when he goes into the manga. So if he recognized the manga and the reader recognized the manga, then it would have been a more enjoyable experience, at least for me. So it was kind of like a double whammy for me. I mean, but that's just my personal taste. I mean, it was
yeah,
definitely well done. Definitely well done. Very complicated. I couldn't follow it. So
yeah.
definitely a
I
genius there. It was just a little, but like for me, like again, like I love the complexity of his other battle systems. Like I've had to reread chapters numerous times, but in this chapter, I didn't feel the need to or want to. Like it was like you're reading it, and I'm like, oh, I appreciate the complexity, but I didn't want like. I guess I'm just still in the mindset of that. This isn't a gaming manga, so I'm not in that mindset to actually get into it. So
okay,
that's
Mm.
yeah.
yeah,
But it's
and
still wonderful. It's just my own limitations.
oh yeah, absolutely. And I've had the same issue with a recent One Piece chapter. Actually, I was just like, it wasn't my thing. I didn't love what they did, but I'm not saying it's a bad manga. It's
Oh yeah.
just didn't love this chapter of that particular One Piece. But this one, I felt the same way after my first read, as I was saying earlier. But I usually like to reread a chapter before we talk about it, just so I can be freshed up on it. And yeah, I ended up enjoying it a lot more on my second read through. So because I kind of had that expectations gone, of what I might be seeing. But
Right.
I kind of like the idea that he made up this rom-com manga
Right.
for this, because for anybody who is way more knowledgeable in mangas than I am, which there's plenty of people, they they would know it and they'd be like, oh, okay, well, this is what's going to happen, and it kind of would have spoiled the end of this chapter, I think, for the diehard people who know all the mangas. I think it would have been perfect if he used like Make Out Paradise, or something like that, which is the manga that Kakashi and Naruto is obsessed with.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that's been awesome.
That would have been great. But
Mm.
I just thought of that, and that would probably
I
be,
like that.
yeah, like it could have been a fun little thing. It's something that doesn't exist, but he didn't want to call out one of the most popular manga ever put on this planet. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I thought all of the rom com stuff was super adorable, and that's kind of why I think that it's going to make a huge impression on Charles, because he's kind of gone in since he was introduced. He has been introduced as the character who just thinks he's smarter and better than everybody, and he just thinks he always knows what's about to happen. And when Hikari, surprises him and blows all of his expectations out of the window, I'm really hoping this is what Charles needed to fall in love with manga again. So I think that we're gonna get a happy ending where both of these guys are, not furious at each other, and hopefully Charles is a better human after all of this, um, or he just took a vital organ out of Hikari, and his nose is also broken, and they have two chapters to live, and then the bad guy shows up. Like I don't know where this could go next. It could go about anywhere, but happiest ending. Everybody's friends now.
It
Yeah,
almost
and
makes sense. Like, oh no, go ahead.
yeah, I sort of think that this sort of reinvigorating Charles's love of manga actually, if my theory of how this is going to go is correct, then I think that it actually makes sense that this manga is just purely made up. Because the way I think
Oh,
it's going to go.
even in this world, even in Jujutsu Kaisen
No,
world.
it's real in the world of Jujutsu
Oh,
Kaisen
okay, okay,
because
gotcha.
Charles is like I recognize that manga, but
Oh, right, my
I
bad.
think it's I think it's good that it's something that exists in Jujutsu Kaisen, but not the real world. Because my theory is that like Hakari is changing the actual events of the manga to sort of fit what he wants to happen to get the jackpots and things like that. And in that case, I think Charles might see the changes and be like, "You're changing this like masterpiece. How could you?"
Yeah.
And uh, and then eventually come to realize that like it makes a perfectly valid story as well. And I think that if this manga actually existed in the real world and this chapter did change an event that actually happened in that manga, and everyone would, or all fans of this manga would be like in the comments being like, that's not what happened. What I,
You're
you know,
disrespecting this masterpiece. Yeah.
yeah. And also like I think that Gege wouldn't want to imply like, oh, I can do this version of the story like better with my own plot for it. So
Yeah.
I think that now this is all hinging on the fact that like my theory is correct, which it easily could not be.
Right.
Okay.
Whatever,
But
Ben.
Oh yeah.
but but maybe this will be the thing that outs me as not Gege's assistant. Just putting out a theory that's so wrong. But I think that if that is the way the manga turns out, then I think it could sort of solve all these problems together, except for the gamified aspect of it, which I just like because I like these sorts of things. So I don't have a deep response to that particular criticism because I think it's valid. But as someone who just loves when manga just push the limits of what counts as like a battle, I really dug this chapter. So
That's cool. No, but yeah, I like the idea, and this is what I'm hoping is going to happen. Because earlier, I mean, before this battle even started, Charles Bernard, like he was in this area, where he wanted to be coaxed into fighting, like he wanted that that spirit that he had lost, and I'm almost thinking that this particular manga, like it's not a normal part of his game, but he put it in there to kind of ignite that flame within Charles, because I mean he definitely knows, I mean, that he is very passionate about manga. I mean, he's quoting D. Gray Man, calling it poem, like certain. So I mean, like, he probably added this bit, knowing like he's using this to inflame Charles Bernard, like, this is what he asked for, which is interesting. Like, when they first got together, like, I thought it was actually that Charles was wanting to get into his fight club. Like, that's what I thought this was all about. Like, when he was originally asking, like, he wanted a reason to fight, like, I thought he wanted to join his fight club, and that this was kind of like a way to get into it, but it doesn't seem to be the case. But
yeah, I almost wonder if every time he triggers his domain expansion, he can choose the story, or if it's always this made up manga. Because him trying to lure people into a fight club, and then he brings up a rom-com comedy manga while he's in the middle of a fight club would definitely be a different mood for that kind of thing. So yeah, if we see more of his domain expansion, I'm sure that will be revealed. I think it would be kind of boring if it's the same story over and over again, but if he's able to change the story and change the ending, then it might be more compelling. But I think it'd be even more compelling if he's able to swap out different stories and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like,
I would love that. Yeah.
Say he starts up a fight club, and then he actually starts doing Fight Club, like Edward Norton and Brad Pitt manga panels. that'd be entertaining. I would be tickled by that.
Well, I think one of our writers, I think it was Ashanti, actually. She whenever she wrote about the Fight Club, she always made that comparison. Like for the featured image, I remember she put in like images from Fight Club next to Jujutsu Kaisen. So she was making those people,
awesome. Well, yeah, we need to get her back on some of these. She seemed interested. She seemed cool.
Especially in Jujutsu Kaisen, that's seemed to be her big thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I just think this whole arc just keeps building and building. I mean, we're getting all these different fights around, but I mean this is, I think, the last batch of like main characters that are in this culling game that we needed to be fleshed out. So. Whenever this fight wraps up and whenever this colony wraps up, whatever this has all been leading to should be revealing itself. And I know that's something that you guys have talked about in previous chapters, where this almost feels like Shibuya arc again, but almost, I don't know if I want to say better written or better constructed, but it just seems to all be leading up to a huge event in the way that Shibuya felt like that too, and it did. It really did. So yeah, I'm curious to see, if any of the big players are going to be jumping back in. Like, boy, here I go with names again. The most evil Jujutsu sorcerer who's possessing the body of Gojo's old buddy.
Oh, Kenjaku.
Kenjaku. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm wondering if he's gonna be making an appearance, and that would actually maybe be the best thing to happen in this fight, is if Kenjaku shows up at right after this.
Yeah,
This
I'm kind
chapter.
of like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling like I don't want to say that it's tapering, but it kind of feels like we're losing focus almost, and it would be great to have like that. We need that big, we need to see that big bad to kind of put everything back into focus since we've been jumping around quite a bit.
Well,
Yeah, especially
especially, yeah.
because I don't think that this is the last of the characters being introduced in this calling game arc. I feel
Yeah.
like there's a couple more left because if you think about characters we need to see or are likely to see, like Megumi's sister is in the calling game, right?
Oh, that's right. They're
So
trying to. That's right.
Megumi's
Yeah,
so we need
that's
to
one of
sister.
the reasons why
see,
they're there. Yeah,
yeah, we need to see what's going on with her.
that's right.
Wait, where
Uh
was she? I don't
Mock
remember her.
Well, we don't
Well,
actually know which colony she's in, I don't think.
or wait, no, isn't there like there's a certain number of days that are left until she gets dragged in, I think.
Oh, that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a time. Yeah, there's like a time. That's when that's why they're rushing because they don't want her to be pulled in. Yeah, so she's about to be. Yeah.
Do we
Oh,
actually think
okay.
that they're
I
going
remember
to
now.
succeed and she won't be pulled in? I feel like it's
Well,
classic Jujutsu Kaisen to
that's why.
screw.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why they're trying to get as many points as possible so they can change the rules so that by the time she gets in there, she can come right out.
I
Yeah.
totally forgot about all that. That was
That's
the ticking clock of this culling game was yeah, Megumi's sister who was established in the first season of the anime. She's isn't she like a vegetable or she was
Yeah, because
like
of a curse that was
yeah. There
put
was that
on
whole
her.
curse at the with the bridge and yeah,
that's
Yeah.
right, that's right.
that was so cool. Oh man,
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
love early jujitsu.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we need Maki to show back up. I'm incredibly
Yep.
excited for Maki to show back up. But I just remembered we haven't seen what's going on with Tengen Party in a while, and they specifically had a couple people hang out to protect Tengen while this is all going on. So we could jump into that.
Well, I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah.
Just because there's that whole thing. I'm still thrown out about like I don't know how Megumi got there. I mean, he's a smart,
He's so
as smart as
smart
that.
and dreamy.
But like he's like he's making those connections that like put Tengen in that like scary mindset that he could have ulterior motives. Like it would be
Yeah.
great to see them again or them or Kenjaku just to put everything
Yeah.
back into focus. That would be phenomenal. I would love that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was actually something. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
I think that the Tengen stuff will get elaborated on eventually
Oh yeah.
in the anime as like jujitsu scrolls at the end of episodes. Like because if you haven't seen the anime, basically at the end of every episode
Oh,
they'd have
right.
sort of a comedic sort of short called Juju Scrolls, and they'd sort of just feature the characters hanging out and stuff like that. So I think it would be really funny if like at the end of these episodes it like goes back to like Tengen and crew hanging out and having sort of like moments of downtime.
Oh, that would also be great. I almost would rather have that than have it be a major pivotal fight that we have to get out because
Yeah.
those were some of the best moments, especially during some of the like more intense episodes. Then it would just cut to this hilarious bit. Like I think my favorite still is some woman's asking Megami just for
Yeah.
directions, and all the Gojo and everybody else is pretending that he isn't available, and they're trying to mess up his chance of this girl possibly liking him. They just go way over the top. It's hilarious.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite too. It's so good.
Good stuff. Well, yeah. Anything else about this chapter that you guys wanted to talk about before we jump into plugs?
Yeah, Steven, if you've got something, you can go first here.
Oh, plugs. For plugs or
For just last
oh
things.
for this. No, I mean that basically just said everything I wanted to say. That I really appreciate, the complexity of this chapter, even though it didn't ring with me. I appreciate the complexity of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
staying positive, guys. I'm staying positive.
yeah. The reason I wanted you to go first is because mine is a bit of a hard pivot because
Ooh.
I actually do like rom-com manga. They're a
Oh,
bit of
yeah.
a soft
Oh
spot of
yeah.
mine.
Oh
And
yes.
I just think it's so great what it's what this chapter is doing with rom-com manga, because it's playing on a lot of tropes, of course.
Oh yeah.
But it's doing it in very fun ways. Like in the last page, they've got sort of like in rom-com manga. There's a classic thing where like when a character's heart's a flutter, it'll be like doki doki or like doku doku or something like that. And
Yeah.
that sound effect is appearing in the last page of this manga. The katakana on the screen are like the doki doki and stuff that
Oh, I
you
didn't even
find in a
catch that. That's awesome.
manga, but it's for
Oh,
like the
that's beautiful.
characters'
I love that.
heartbeats like in battle, which is just hilarious to me.
That's
You
actually
know what?
really deep. I like that a
I'll
lot.
take it an extra level deeper. You helped me realize that maybe that is Charles. That's
Yeah,
Charles'
it could
love
be.
of manga, like his heart getting that beat
I'm
back.
loving this, guys.
Yeah,
That's,
it's very
I'm loving
ambiguous
this.
as to what it is, but it's just it's such a masterful use of like this trope and applying it in a different way that I love it.
That's
Um,
almost like yeah, I
Brilliant.
love it. Yeah, it's almost like even though I'm not really that much fan of the manga Doron Dororon, like yeah, like his use of onomatopoeias are actually pretty intense. Like the title of it, Doron Dororon, is actually the sound effects that the yokai, I think that no, the
the
Mononoke,
Mononoke.
yeah,
Yeah.
that the Mononoke make is Doron Dororon, and so you can get these deeper readings when there's human characters who make those same sounds. So it kind of puts the emphasis back on sound effects. So I love that you're pointing that out too. That's
Yeah,
great.
and I think it's something that often gets lost because a lot of the times, like Japanese sound effects are translated to like what they'd be in English, which I think is good to do because like, you know, you're not going to understand that like, staring is like G because the
Right?
Japanese
Yeah.
word for staring is related to like G. Um, so you translate it to stare, and they're doing the same thing here where like we don't generally think of heartbeats as going like doki doki,
Right.
but like we think of them as like boom
Ba-bum,
boom boom boom,
ba-bum.
and
Yeah.
so it's translating that over. Um, but I
You-
feel like once you know the actual like sound effects, you can make these connections a bit more easily.
That's
And it's
beautiful. I
yeah.
love that you made that connection.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for
and,
bringing that
and,
up.
and, and you actually, you said I don't want to get too off topic, but you said you like rom-coms. Are you a fan of Blue Box?
I need to get caught up on that. I
Yeah,
started reading it and I really enjoyed it, but
yeah,
then I
it's
put it down for a bit.
Yeah, I was
yeah,
going to
the
ask you
pace.
guys. I am like zero experience in those types of series. So any ones that you'd recommend our listeners check out, go for it.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I mean, I would say, I mean, from Shonen Jump, from my perspective, Blue Box, it's actually kind of it's beautifully written. Like it's a sports manga that's really not a sports manga because it's more of a rom com. But the way
Oh, all
that
right.
it does it, the pacing is beautiful. Like the one problem with that rom coms have is that sometimes the pacing is too quick, and or when they slow down. Like what I mean by pacing is like you have the typical characters where both of them might be interested, but are they? You have one character who definitely loves the other, but we don't know the feeling of that other person. And there's all these little instances where like, oh my God, does he feel this way about me? And then they have these really cute little moments that like bring like, oh my God, is he just being really nice? Like Blue Box, it does it beautifully. Like the pacing is almost too perfect.
yeah.
And then the way they bring in the sports to it as well, like that's how they kind of explain or kind of show their emotions for the other. Like one's a tennis player, one is a basketball player, and seeing the guy who's a tennis guy getting into basketball because that's what she loves doing. It's just kind of like, even though it's not romantic, it's the fact that he is
Making an
going
effort.
out of his comfort. Yeah, it's just like the way that it's done though. It's very poetic, and I oh, it's beautiful. Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
that sounds
I
awesome.
like I started reading that series and then for some reason I think I just got busy and so I put it down for a while. But like that was really good the parts that I read of it. So
yeah.
I
I
definitely
don't
plan
know.
on.
It's definitely beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of rom-coms too. So, and like
Yeah.
another one I like too. I don't know if you've been reading. I know you're reading a lot of stuff, Ben. Like Witch Watch.
I have no. I started that and like the first couple chapters didn't grab me actually.
Uh,
So I maybe it was just like the general like silliness of it, which I know
yeah,
I like One Piece, which is a very silly series as
uh,
well. So it
I'm
shouldn't
staying
be a
positive now.
yeah.
No, but like Witch Watch, it's it starts off really powerfully with the rom-com bit, which I that's what dragged me in, but then it kind of
Mm,
tapers off, so I stopped reading actually. So with that, but
yeah.
like the start is really strong with the romance, which I loved. But
All
yeah,
right.
Yeah, the one of my favorite currently running rom-coms though, and Viz just put up a bunch of chapters into their vault, um, is
I love this.
Kaguya-sama Love is War,
Mm.
because I think it actually mixes rom-com with like shonen tropes very well. Um, because basically it's just these dumb kids who are like who are they don't want to open themselves up, so they like but they like each other. So they try and play these games to get the other one to admit that they like
Oh, I love it.
the other
Sounds
one
good.
like before they because they don't want to be the one to sort of like take the chance and like ask the other one out. So they've
Oh,
got to do
okay.
these like big brain mind games and stuff, and it's just like it's so funny. It perfectly captures that feeling of like being young and not wanting to, sort of ask someone out for fear of rejection. Um,
Okay.
but like, but it's just seeing their romance build in that framework is very fun. So,
Yeah, that's actually one
uh,
of those series that I knew nothing about, but I've seen the name in a lot of places, like online on Reddit and Twitter and stuff. And as I've said, I'm a Naruto fan, so I saw the name Kaguya, and I'm like, "Whoa, what's this about?" And then I
Mhm.
saw a little bit into it, and I'm like, "Oh no, this okay, this is something different. I'll maybe come back to it some other day." And but yeah, I've heard enough good things about it. Definitely check that out as well. But
yeah, and the anime for it is very good as well.
oh, okay, good.
So
So yeah, that might be why I also see more about it because it's got a good anime behind it. But
yeah,
Blue
excuse me.
Exorcist also has a really good rom-com story between
Ooh.
Ren and Shiami or Shimi. Their relationship is pretty darn adorable. I mean, it doesn't get too far in the anime because it just stopped randomly at season two.
No, bummer.
Um, but their relationship really grows to a point where actually Ren. I don't want to give too much away. But even Ren's brother Yukio actually gets involved, and it doesn't become a triangle, but it creates that extra type of dynamic that a lot of people aren't aware of, since the manga for some reason is below a lot of radars. But yeah, Blue Exorcist is one of the few shonen that I like that has a good a good romance factor to it, and also Black Clover. I know that a lot of it is kind of over the top, but in later chapters, it gets real with Noel actually, to a
mm,
point where it's like, wow. It's like it's
Yeah,
taking kind of an intense turn that you weren't expecting.
I'm about
Yeah.
290 chapters into that, and yeah, I'm waiting for that relationship to build because it's definitely one of the cuter shonen relationships that I've read in a lot of series because a lot of series don't really do relationships at all or very well, and
mm,
it's definitely not like a main plot point. Everything's not driving on that thing happening, but it's just so many hints, throughout every arc to show that two characters are into each other is handled very well on Black Clover. But yeah, so I feel like we just got our recommendations out of the way.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think we'll be wrapping up this episode of Jujutsu Kaisen 183. It definitely got a lot of feelings and thoughts in all of us. The
Hmm.
the game lovers and the game haters and the rom com lovers, and I don't really know anybody who hates rom-com. Maybe there's people who are like, oh, I'm here to watch battles, not not love and stuff. That's lame. Just like, well, I don't know. That stuff kind of makes the battles better and more intense, more emotionally heavy. So the more I thought about this chapter, the more I enjoyed it. I was kind of in Steven's vote first. I didn't enjoy it at first because just kind of the whole gaming thing. Whenever a manga does that, it's just like, okay, here's all the rules that you think you know. Now we're gonna make up all these other rules, and we're gonna try to get you to understand these rules in the span of like 2 pages. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of info dump. Don't do that to me. But Gege handled it in a way that I've never seen handled it before. Like Jujutsu Kaisen, especially with the introduction of Charles, is able to be self-aware through Charles, and it was played beautifully.
Oh yeah, like I'm gonna say he did it masterfully. It's just unfortunately I have these stupid preconceived notions in my head. But yeah, no, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh man, I appreciate the heck out of this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and especially thanks to some of Ben's notes, I'm enjoying it even more. So.
Oh yeah, like the heartbeat, man. You should write a pitch about that. You really should. I'm really loving.
Yeah, because that was something I'm sure plenty of especially English readers didn't pick up on. So.
Yeah, I initially thought it was just a small little Easter egg that I enjoyed, but talking more about it with you guys, like, it actually does have a lot of sort of depth to it.
Yeah, and I got really excited over it, so I bet a lot of people would too. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Well, absolutely. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking Jujutsu Kaisen 183. We'll go ahead and jump into some plugs. I'm Jason Hahn. Check out other series or other episodes of Mega Manga Monday. We talk about new chapters for One Piece. We got new chapters of Boruto and Dragon Ball Super coming up pretty soon. We haven't done a One Punch Man one in a little while, and it's released a couple phenomenal chapters, so we might be doing another discussion of that soon. But also check out screenrant.com for all your video game news, movie news, and comic news, especially for my buddies here. They write a lot of great and introspective articles relating to all kinds of series and English comics and DC, Marvel, manga, all of it. So definitely check it out. I also do a YouTube channel called Honzy and Friends, comedic let's plays, fun video games with cool people. We try to make each other laugh. Check that out. Ben, you got any plugs, or we've recommended plenty already?
Yeah. So I actually do have something to plug now.
Yeah.
I started up a YouTube channel called YGO from Zero, which is basically just I'm trying to document the different historical formats of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Over time. And I just started that endeavor with the very first format. It was based around the first card set released. And I think it turned out decently well. So if that's something that interests you, then feel free to check it out.
And this might be a dumb question, but what came first? The card game or the anime or the manga?
I'm pretty sure the manga came first, because at least in terms of like the card game didn't release in America for like a bit after it released in Japan. But so it originated from like the Yu-Gi-Oh manga originally was just like sort of like this pharaoh possessing this teenager and like defeating or like punishing evil people playing different games. Oh, okay. And so those games varied from like chapter to chapter. And then the mangaka included a take on like Magic the Gathering, and people ate it up. So he was like, "Oh, I should develop this more." And then that became the Yu-Gi-Oh card game.
Wow. I always thought that Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic felt very similar. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, no. And the games have like some fairly big differences, like mechanically.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like Magic was the progenitor of the trading card game craze, and Japan sort of ran with it with like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, and a lot of other TCGs. So
excellent. Well, yeah, I'm gonna check out or definitely check that out, and I'm gonna have the the info for that in the description for this podcast. So wherever you're listening to the podcast, Spotify or YouTube or Spreaker, I think is how you say that. But yeah, check it out in the description and definitely enjoy that. Steven, you got anything, bud?
No, I mean, I'll just say that since we're on the topic of rom-coms and trading card games, there is a really good series that I wrote about last year. I don't know who the publisher is. I completely forgot. But it has a random name. Destroy All Humankind.
Oh
They
yeah,
can't be
that's
regenerated. Yeah, yeah.
great.
So it's
Yeah.
basically like it's a rom-com with two people that are into Magic the Gathering. One is openly nerdy, the other one is not, and it's them bonding over Magic in away from school because she doesn't want everyone to know at school that she likes it.
Oh.
And it's yeah, and it's really one of those manga where even if you don't know anything about Magic the Gathering, the mangaka goes into extreme detail about the different things that they're referencing. It kind of sounds like what you're doing on your YouTube channel, Ben. Almost,
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
All right.
it is kind of similar because that's also it's set in like the 90s, so these are like Magic's first sort of sets as well.
Oh, cool.
Um,
And what was that series called again?
Destroy all humankind. Period. They can't be regenerated. Period.
Oh, okay. That's another name I've seen around too. So I think that one, did that just come out somewhat recently, or did it have a resurgence or something like that?
No, it was. I don't know. Like it was one because on one of the manga websites I go to.
Okay.
It popped up on there, and I was like, "Ooh, this looks like fun." So then I read it, and then I was like, "Ooh, I want to write about it."
yeah.
There you go. All right, cool. Well, thanks for your recommendations and your time today, guys. It was a lot of fun talking Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm excited to record and talk about 184. That should be out in a couple days. Sorry for the different release schedule this week. We just had some scheduling issues, but we have a lot coming out next week, so look forward to that. But I've been Jason Hahn. This is Mega Manga Mondays, and I think that'll do it for this episode. But yeah, as I said, check out other stuff, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you all next time.
Peace.